Let's transform these two chords into this vintage textured sample. So today's video is brought to you by two types of chords, and we're going to unpack everything you need to know about them in our little theory breakdown, which is going to be the first part of this video, and then we're going to jump into some seasoning and some sauce, and I'm going to show you how to process these and make them sound incredible. So our super spicy chord today is going to be the diminished chord, and you've heard this in tons of R&B.
Yeah, I'm out here on the road.
Too long, just wanted you to show me up. So won't you?
All I ever wanted was a black Grand National. Fuck being rational, give them what they ask.
The sample feature today is in my new pack, Zenith. You've got 9 original samples, bass midis, and a drum mixing cheat sheet as well in there for you. Download the free mini kit version. Link is down there in the description.
So we're in the key of A minor today, and A minor is a good key to use for production because we are using all of the white keys. So A being our 1, and then each white key is assigned a number all the way back to A again. If we take the 1 being A, our 3, and our 5, we have an A minor triad. Simple chord. We can add one more note, take our 7th and add a G. We now have A minor 7th chord that we can move the voices around, create inversions with. So we can do anything here, moving these, and we create different sounds, experiment with that, and I'm going to show you how we can liven that chord up in a moment. Our second chord, our root is G sharp, and you might be thinking, hold on, G sharp is not in the key of A minor, and you'd be right. What we're doing here is we're building a diminished chord, and we are using it as a passing chord to create tension and bring us back to that A minor chord. Diminished chords are really, really useful. You're going to hear them in tons and tons of soul and R&B music. Interestingly, diminished chords were used in movies and have been for years to create tension and fear. How do we build one? Well, we stack minor thirds on top of each other, and we create this symmetrical chord which has a few interesting uses, which I'm going to show you. If we start on a G sharp, one tip I'm going to give you is before any minor chord in a diatonic scale, so the 1, the 4, or the 5, you can put a diminished chord, a semitone underneath that, and that will give you a really, really good passing chord. If we take our G sharp, skip 2 notes, play a B, skip 2 notes, play a D, we have a G sharp or A flat diminished triad. And then if we do the same again, repeat the pattern and add another note on top, we have a diminished 7th chord. You can hear the tension there, and the cool thing, because this is a symmetrical chord, if I take this bass note and I move that to the top of the chord, we now have a B diminished chord. And now if I do that again, we now have a D diminished chord. And if I do that one more time, we now have an F diminished chord. And you can hear the tension ramping up each time, and we can use that and we can move this chord up and down to play different diminished chords, but they all serve the same function. Even this F diminished, if we move a couple of notes around in the A minor chord here, which is still an A minor 7, watch this. The fact we can just move the same shape around is really, really handy. And we can actually create quite complicated melodies using these diminished chords that sound way more tricky and advanced than they really are. Change the diminished chord, the note on top's going to change, but really it's still doing the same function and bringing us back to that A minor. What I like to do is move the diminished chord up in minor thirds and then come back to our 1 chord. I'll show you how we can use these different tricks combined with some sound design sauce to really make some incredible samples using just these 2 chords. So this sample is essentially 2 sections sections. The first 8 bars use this kind of drum groove that's very kind of like a little Afrobeat, a little reggaeton. It's very light though, so I'm leaving space for a producer to do their thing. I had sound shifter on master and I was raising the whole sample up by 3 semitones. We started out in A minor, and then there's a lot of little elements to this, but the main sound that carries this whole sample is this Mulitikeys pigment sound. This one sound just takes care of so much of the frequency range for you. It does a lot of heavy lifting. Just dropped a couple of sounds in here. These are from Coop's one-shot kit. They are just really clean, nice one-shots, so they work really well here. Just to recap, you drop the samples in, make sure that they're all playing on the same note, and then you go to this map button here and make sure you click round robin, and that just means every time you play a key, a different sample is going to trigger. We look at the MIDI as well and what I played here. This is really going to help you understand how I use diminished and the minor 7th chord. You can see this is our minor 7th chord here, but actually I'm highlighting this B note, which happens to be the minor 9. It's actually an add 9 because I'm omitting the 7th. If the 7th was in here, it would be a C minor 9. And you can see here I'm going dee da doom dee da, and that's the melody that I had in my head. I always start with a simple melody, whether that be dee 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 da 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 or do da dee da. I'm gonna have as my highest notes because the ear catches the highest note of any sound before it catches what's underneath, and what's underneath is just giving us a nice bed to sit on. A minor chord to this G sharp diminished, and I'm just actually starting with this triad, and then I'm adding the top F note here, and I like to also leave velocities on my samples as I played them in on the keyboard. Sometimes I just randomize the velocities so it sounds a bit more natural. It doesn't relax the quantization. Maybe I humanize it a bit. In Logic you can do that by highlighting all of your MIDI functions here, MIDI transform, humanize, and give you some options of how you want to humanize. I think you can do a similar thing in FL. You should be able to, or just slightly drag some of the notes out a little bit just to give a little variation on how things are played. You can see little notes that I'm catching here, like tiny little micro notes, and this works really well for multi-keys as well. Usually I would maybe take this note and move it to a different place, so give a little variation there. Minor chord to diminished chord, minor chord to diminished chord the whole way through. It just works really well. And I also pan this slightly to the right because I knew I was going to pan another sound to the left. Got this texture sound. Just interplays nicely with this pigment sound here. Oh, and on that texture, I'm just running some sound shifter, messing with the key a little bit there, some shaper box, doing some pumping there, some side chaining, and some EQ, just rolling off some bottom end to make some space for my bass sounds. I added this guitar, which I played in, and I recorded on my phone with a voice note. It just gives a nice lo-fi quality to the sound. And if I take the processing off, it's going to sound completely different to what it ended up sounding like. So simple melody. I'm just picking out with one finger or 2 fingers on my nylon string guitar. You can hear me going between that A minor, hammering onto the 9, and then playing a little diminished chord, and it immediately gave me a slightly kind of Latin feel to this. I wanted to really bring out in my other sounds. Put some of my favorite Arturia Rev Spring on there, then some Soothe. Guitars can be a little harsh. I wanted to soften the sound a little bit. Some sound shifter in which I pitched it a whole octave up, and this just gave a completely different texture and feel to that guitar. And I love those little hand percussion mistake kind of notes that really add some more texture to the sample. I added a little vinyl crackle just for some ambience, chose a Spanish vocal, and I chopped it up a little bit, added some processing on before my processing. First thing I want to stick on is this sound shifter to get in the right key, and I added 1 to put it in key and 1 to pitch it again all the way up by a whole octave, and with a phaser on. A little bit of reverb here with shaper box, not doing any shaping to the reverb, and then this filter which just brings the sound in and out, just keeps things interesting. Things are going from left to right, things are going from front to back, nothing is just solid and stale. Drums really setting the stage here for it to drop at bar 5, and the bass really brought the whole thing together. Rickenbacker bass on the double date PM preset, and I went for a kind of reggaeton pattern here. I'm arpeggiating the chords out here, boom, 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 and I also brought some just sustained chords in, and I used this Vital preset that I made in one of my other videos, pitched synth, which is an R&B type synth, so together. Probably move the attack on this a little bit to make it feel a little bit more in time and in the groove. Added this little sound in key of the song, boom, 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 little percussive sound. Took out the multi-keys for this section, but you can hear what else is playing. I think I added another guitar on top. And if you just like these guitar parts, grab this sample, it's in my free mini kit, and you can play around with these, chop them, do what you like with them. And I'd love to hear what you come up with, so hit me up on my Instagram at bsticks_production. Kept the vocal in, but chopped even more parts of it out, left the drums in. With the bass, we got this. It could probably be even more empty than it actually is, but I like to give people loads to work with, so they've got all kinds of parts, stems, so you can just chop it as you see fit. And from bar 9 to 13, a lot of the sounds are very similar. I dropped out this drum groove and just went for a straight, more R&B type groove. Instead of it being syncopated, we're more like just kept the bass still moving as it was, but put in a couple more fill notes just to add a little variation. Again, as I've always said, I never like something to just repeat. And then I brought the multi-keys back in, and I think I'm playing exactly the same with the multi-keys here. I hope you've seen how you can use diminished in one context here, just to alternate between two chords, give you tension, give you some release, give you tension, give you some release. If you got something out of this, check this video in the top corner now for some more source.